Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. I am Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Join me on the first and third Thursdays on the Dr. Diane Show, where I have experts from around the country teaching you cutting-edge therapies on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. And please like and subscribe to my channel, Dr. Diane Hayden. I'm excited today to have with me Dr. Zachary Moran. He is a board-certified and licensed naturopathic doctor in Columbia, Connecticut. He has a background and continued interest in fitness and nutrition as a previous collegiate wrestler and CrossFit athlete. He specializes in chronic infectious disease and environmental toxicity and provides a comprehensive and holistic approach to complex chronic disease. And you can learn more about him at his website, which is www.rootsmedicalcenter.com. So welcome, Dr. Zach. How are you today?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, so I usually like to start my shows off by giving my listeners a little bit more info about you and kind of your story and your journey and how you went down the path of naturopathic medicine and what was it that kind of got you even interested in that direction?
Yeah, well, it is a long story, and as I look back and reflect on it, there's probably a lot of little pieces that go into it. I was lucky enough to be raised in a family that had a little bit of some medical background. My father was osteopathically trained in Toronto, Canada, which is more of a European style osteopathic medicine. And so I kind of grew up a little bit surrounding it. Coming out of college, undergrad, I was big into health and fitness. I was really big in athletics and competition. And so I had the interest in pursuit of potentially pursuing some orthopedic work in conventional medicine. Having shadowed a variety of doctors in the conventional field of medicine, a lot of them were either burnt out or disinterested or kind of frustrated in the system that they were in. And it wasn't the work quality life that I was really looking for. And they discouraged me actually from pursuing it. And so I was looking for alternative options in the medical space to pursue as graduate work. And I came across naturopathic medicine, which was not a very common practiced medicine in the New England area, at least from where I lived. And when I found it resonated with everything that I had learned and I had grown up doing. It spoke to aspects of not only just reactive medicine, but more proactive health and health optimization. Spoke to nutrition, spoke to using a lot of the principles that I grew up with. And when I found that type of medicine, it was full-fledged, jumped right in, started naturopathic medicine medical school probably 6 months after finding out what it was. And haven't looked back since. I've loved it ever since. And I've seen a lot of different types of practice throughout my time in naturopathic medicine because it's such a vast field. And now I get to practice back in my home state with some of the doctors that I originally shadowed with, which is kind of cool. Full circle.
Yeah, that's awesome. So wait, are you a Toronto Blue Jays fan?
No, we never went that far.
Oh, that's too funny. They're in the World Series right now as we speak, as we're doing this show for sure. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, most of the guests I have on my show, for whatever type of holistic specialty they're doing, it was either like some of them actually had a chronic illness and that kind of led them down the path to that. They really struggled with, figuring out how to solve it through traditional medicine. It just didn't have the answers for them. And then a lot of times it's just people that kind of had a feeling like, this is the way medicine should be practiced, right? And it's just,
Yeah.
it's a calling, obviously.
Yeah. And it was something that really, I really appreciate the doctors in the conventional space that have life-threatening or life-saving tools, right? Time and place for anything, right? So the ER docs are doing amazing work, the surgeons are doing amazing work. I was not called to that field, and trying to fit into that was not for me. I get to work with patients every day. I enjoy it. The reward is I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So typically, what kinds of health issues do you see often? I mean, are you definitely have more of a niche, and so we could talk about that. Like, what is it that you're really passionate about, and how did you kind of get into that niche? Was it that you just started attracting patients like that had different complex issues, or was it just something that you were always interested in?
Yeah, again, looking back and reflecting on that, I definitely was not the plan. My niche is in complex chronic disease. I see a lot of patients with, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I've been to 16 doctors and no one can figure it.
Right.
Can you help me? And I always say, yeah, I'm sure we can find some way to help you, right? Because I'm always a person who wants to at least help the person in front of me to some extent. And I've been blessed enough to been given the resources to really make a huge difference in a lot of people's disease patterns and lives. And initially, I was trying to force my interests, which was health and fitness, going into medical school. And I actually found myself in regenerative medicine space. I did a lot of stem cell work through medical school. We did a lot of injection therapies. I was set up to do practice in mostly orthopedics, biologics, things like that, that helped with patients' musculoskeletal concerns. And then COVID hit, 2020 hit. I graduated, and the demand was no longer for joint and musculoskeletal concerns. The demand was for life-saving chronic inflammatory conditions.
Mhm.
And I took up a residency in New Hampshire. I had great mentors, and they've been doing a lot of work within chronic infectious disease with tick-borne diseases like Lyme. We had done a lot of work within the chronic inflammatory cascades of mold toxicity, and we partnered it with the disease pattern of COVID and long COVID, and the demand of and the interest was through the roof in that category. No one was really putting the pieces together, at least not routinely. You'd see patients. I've got long COVID. I don't know why. I've got these vague symptoms. I don't know why. And my interest was trying to kind of be the detective in that cascade. And so after a few years, that was my pretty much my sole goal. The demand for getting people out of these chronic inflammatory conditions, autoimmune conditions, unknown conditions with a symptom profile, and then kind of getting them back into health. So I don't really do much in the regenerative space anymore. I have resources of other practitioners I really refer to. And now I opened my own practice in Connecticut a number of years back, and we really focus on oncology, autoimmune diseases, chronic inflammatory cascades with an unknown cause, and we're trying to identify that.
Yeah. So, what is it like to work with you? So, like, let's say, a patient, and I'm asking a general question. Obviously, it's going to depend on what are they, what are their complaints and what are they presenting with and all that. But let's say, somebody comes in with X, Y, Z, or like long COVID or Lyme or whatever. Kind of walk
Yeah.
me through, like, what's it like to work with you guys?
Yeah, so I opened a practice a few years back with the intention of being as if I was a patient, right? Our whole goal was patient-focused medicine. So not conventionally, we don't focus on the patient. We focus on templates and programs that the patients sometimes fit into and get treated accordingly, right?
Mhm.
You get set number of treatments, antibiotics, prednisone based upon your symptom profile. Whereas my practice was we meet the patient where they're at. So my intention was, how do I take a patient with an unknown origin cause and identify that and help them resolve it? So we treat patients all over the country. Pretty much the daily kind of way it works is most of the time patients will come to us with a group of diagnostics, maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 books of diagnostics that they've done over the course of 10 years. And then they'll come with a series of symptoms. We'll have them fill out intakes, questionnaires, really get us a good history and a good symptom profile. We'll go over a lot of that in a format, consult format for an hour, 2 hours. We'll establish timeframes depending on the patient's demands. For oncology patients, we sometimes see people for 3 hours trying to identify root causes. And then what we'll do is we'll pursue more diagnostics if it's demanded. A lot of times patients don't have deep root cause diagnostics because they're not conventionally run. We're not looking at the GI microbiome. We're not looking at toxic thresholds. We're not looking at all these different components that you can map out and identify with functional testing. We'll get that done pending the patient's need. And then we'll come up with, okay, we found culprits to the problem. How are we going to work together to resolve this? And no two people are the same. Every person has a different route of getting to the destination. And that could mean a slow pace, a fast pace. That could mean a very intensive protocol. It could mean a very gradual protocol. Everyone's going to be unique.
Yeah, I love it. And obviously, like, of course, because people are coming with all different types of, situations, even if it could be the same disease, having it for longer times or more dispositions to genetically or things like that, or maybe some people don't respond as quickly to some treatment as others. So I love the fact that naturopathic medicine in and of itself is very individualized, of course, that's the whole point. But the fact that you spend 2 to 3 hours potentially with a patient, it's, people don't get that anywhere, honestly. Like it's
Well,
what
sometimes
makes
it's
your
a
practice
20,
unique.
yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's a 20, 30 year history where it's just manifesting over time and you're trying to track down origins. And it takes time. And patients don't always remember all those details. You have to go through the history and try and ask all the questions. Oh, yeah, you're right. I actually did move into a moldy house that time. Or this was right after a pregnancy or something of that clues us into root causes and then we can understand what's going on.
Yeah, right. No, I love it for sure, for sure. Well, this is great. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will explore more with Dr. Zachary Moran. He's a board certified and licensed naturopathic doctor, and you can learn more about him at www.rootsmedicalcenter.com. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. But before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or at either of my 2 publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And you can learn more about Dr. Zachary Moran at his website, which is www.rootsmedicalcenter.com. That's spelled ROOTSMEDICALCENTER.com. So before we went to break, we were just kind of, talking about just how individualized and personalized this medicine is that you practice and what it's like to work with you and, your background and all of that. So I know people are always curious, like, people are always asking me as an exercise physiologist, so what do you do for exercise? And well, how do you eat? And that kind of thing. Same thing, I'm sure, with you being a naturopathic physician and also your background in CrossFit and all of that. So what does your diet look like? Like, what does your exercise routine look like?
Yeah, well, so back in the day when I was training full time, it was much more intensive than it is now. I like to keep up with my exercise as much as possible because I really do find it makes such a big difference in function, cognitive function, and energy levels, and it's so important. I basically eat and exercise to give myself the best fuel and energy possible to be the best doctor I can, right? So I incentivize people, and myself included, to really work on morning routine exercise. I find that if you can get your day started and the cortisol response started with good energy, with exercise, some type of natural stimulation of blood flow and circulation, you're going to have a drastic improvement throughout the day. It sets you up for success. So I really try and exercise in the morning. I still devote a lot of time towards strength training, and I definitely incorporate a variety of conditioning, basically functional exercise, maybe in the CrossFit-esque space. So we're doing a variety of strength training in the morning, maybe an hour, half an hour every day. If you're devoted with your time, you're not taking too many breaks. I think 30 to 45 minutes every day is sufficient.
I want to jump on something you just said about doing something in the morning to kind of like get your metabolism revved up. And it's interesting because I traditionally have not been a morning exerciser. I think I do better at like 1 or 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon,
Mm,
as far as like my energy levels and things like that, whether I'm running or I'm lifting or whatever it might be. But over the last year or so, what I have started doing in the morning is I have this really quick 10-minute like ab routine that I do.
nice.
I follow this thing on line called Power Abs, and she has all these different like 10-minute quick routines. You're in and out. And I started doing it in the morning, honestly, only because I realized if I waited till the end of the day after I did my strength training or after I was running or whatever it was, I didn't do it. Like I was too tired or other things came up or whatever. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get up first thing before I do anything. I'm going to do this 10-minute routine. And it literally, I was actually shocked at how much more energy it gave me just doing something that short,
Yep.
making a difference like that. I'm like, wow, like it really, it does make a huge difference. Even only if you do 10 minutes of something, like 10 minutes of yoga or
Yep.
10 minutes of some type of like stretching or whatever, just so you're moving your body, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And a lot of people make the mistake of waiting till the end of the day, right? And either it doesn't get done because you're too tired at the end of the day or too busy at the end of the day. The mistake also is that if you do end up going at the end of the day, you tend to then either get overstimulated and affect your sleep pattern if you're exercising too close to sleep, or you end up with this imbalance in cortisol. You end up eating too much closer to bedtime. There's a big problem with that. You don't want to stimulate yourself too much at the end of the day because sleep is so essential, right? That's such a big variable. So I like what you're doing. I like to do the bulk majority of my exercise in the morning, and then I like to do that 10-minute session of some type of warm-up routine midday to keep my metabolism going, because everyone gets that afternoon lull. So if you catch it before the afternoon lull, you'll actually maintain your energy production throughout that. And you won't need to pull for any of those quick snacks to try and keep yourself going.
Right, right. So diet wise, like typically, what are you doing? There's so many different things out there. I
Sure,
mean, like I'm sure
sure.
people like, every time I turn around, there's some new thing, whether it's, the carnivore diet or
Yep.
intermittent fasting or you name it. Like, what is your philosophy just around all those different things and for you yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not married to any diet. I know that I've used carnivore, vegan, vegetarian, keto, paleo, all within the past month for different patients, pending different circumstances, right?
Right.
So it's all individualized. And it's also what the person's able and willing to do, which also makes a big difference on compliance. Um, but for me personally, I stick to kind of a variant of Whole 30 or paleo. And I think generally, focusing on whole foods, I eat specifically roughly a gram of protein per pound of body weight. I know that's essential for me to maintain my energy production. I'm a blood type O, so I know blood type O's really do well through research on high protein diets. So I, to some extent, eat right for your type. I also focus on when to eat is also a very big variable for me. I do not fast in the morning. I find that I do much worse fasting in the morning. That's, pending your energy levels. I've got 3 young kids at home. I don't sleep as well as I should. If I fast in the morning, I tank midday.
Yeah.
So I like to actually fast later in the evening. I don't eat close to bedtime, but I'll make sure I get plenty of calories in the morning, lots of protein, get my day started right with some exercise. And then just like I do, I try and get my metabolism to maintain throughout the day with consistent consumption of food and fuel, protein, fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, mostly about 95% of my diet. And then toward the evening, it'll come down. I'll eat a little bit less calorically. And that kind of 95% of the time leaves me 5% to live, with like, I've got young kids, they want to go have a sweet treat once in a while. So I will have that 5% to go and have that resilience to handle something if I need to. Parties, birthday parties, recreational activities. So I think it's important. Most people, they're like, yeah, you're not supposed to eat anything bad. And that's unrealistic. You can't live in America and avoid everything. So I find if you can be cognizant 95% of the time, you shouldn't have to worry about the 5%.
And it's always people's definition of bad as well, right? Like, we might think, okay, bad might be sugar or,
Sure.
sweets or things like that. But, for some people, bad for them might be pasta or it
Yeah.
might be bread or it could be,
Yep.
like there's a lot of
Mhm.
different things in terms
Right.
of what falls under that category of what makes people gain weight, let's say, or not feel good or,
Right.
have digestive issues or things like that. So I think it's also just listening to your body, right? Like, how does this food make me feel when I eat it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be a variety of factors pending the health of the digestive tract, the health of the individual, the history, the genetics, that all plays a role. My guilty pleasure is chocolate and peanut butter, and I have a hard time avoiding that one.
Yep. Yep. But I mean, it depends. Also, I think like I'm a salty person. I'll give me like salt over sweet all the time, but it's because I stopped eating so much sugary things like so many years ago that now if I eat something, like if there's a dessert or whatever, because there's a party or whatever it might be, if I have more than like two or three bites, I just don't feel good. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to try it, but it's not even enticing to me anymore just because I know that I'm not going to feel good if I eat the whole thing after that.
Yeah, you got rid of the sugar addiction.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. For sure. So, this is a general question, and I'm sure it's going to be like there. You can answer this a million different ways, and also it's going to be based on again the individual person. But is there like one supplement that you recommend everyone should take, or a couple, or something like in your wheelhouse?
I have found that if I had to pick one supplement that almost everyone needs, it's some form of additional mineral support across the board. And that could come in the form of electrolytes, the form of magnesium, the form of a broad spectrum mineral. But I find that 90 to 95% of my patients are dehydrated, and it's not always due to lack of water consumption. It's the fact that they have no minerals left to hold the water in their system. And so now we're talking about how, sea salt is so important. We're talking about how magnesium deficiency is so rampant. We're seeing a lot of deficiencies in just the body's ability to hold on to the water because they're no longer having the electrolytes because there's too much coffee consumption, too much stress, too much lack of consumption of food that have minerals in them. And we're just not seeing the nutrient density in the food that we used to. So I usually get most people on some type of hydration support, usually a broad spectrum mineral that covers the magnesium and electrolytes, and that usually makes a game-changing benefit in the exercise, in their energy levels, in their cognitive function. They feel so much better instantly.
Yeah, I have a lot of people that will say to me like, "Oh my God, I drink so much water, but I feel like all I'm doing is peeing it out."
Exactly. That's your key
Yeah,
right there.
and that's basically because you're saying that, if you don't have the minerals to support it, then your body's just going to eliminate the water.
Water follows minerals. So if you don't have minerals in your body, water is just going to go right through. And a lot of times we'll see that in a lot of patients was I just pee if I drink too much water. Well, you need about 100 ounces of water. Most people need about 100 ounces of water, and most people are getting nowhere close because they don't want to be in the bathroom. Well, it means you're mineral deficient.
Interesting. Yeah. And is it more than just like standard? You said magnesium, potassium, sodium, that kind of thing. Are
Trace
there more minerals?
minerals, yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
need it.
because I think a lot of people, I think, take like an electrolyte or maybe even magnesium, and they still find that they're going to the bathroom a lot. So it's probably not those major ones. It's more trace minerals that you're lacking.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why you have to have variety, right? A little bit of maybe some sea salt for the trace minerals, maybe some magnesium and some complex minerals on top of it. A lot of the electrolyte formulas nowadays are just sugar, flavored sugar water. So you have to be careful about, what you're getting. I won't name any particular names, but you have to be very cognizant about what you're consuming. It's potentially just, flavored sugar water.
You're absolutely right. And it's funny because I was taking a particular one for a while, and finally actually looked at, well, somebody keyed me into it. Now I'll just name the brand because I absolutely love it. Essential. It's called Hydration, I think.
Okay.
And the amount of levels that's in that versus the other one that I was taking, I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even really think to pay attention to how much there's like nothing in this other, you know, electrolyte formula. I'm like, I've been taking this other one for years. Like, there's like
Yeah,
nothing in it. It's
right.
ridiculous compared to some other things that are out there in the market. So I love this conversation. We're going to get into a lot more. You're listening to Dr. Diane on the Dr. Diane Show. When we come back, we'll be talking more with Dr. Zachary Moran. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I am talking today with Dr. Zachary Moran. He is a naturopathic physician, board certified, and you can learn more about him at his website, which is www.rootsmedicalcenter.com. That's spelled ROOTSMEDICALCENTER.com. So, one of the questions I want to make sure we cover is that a lot of times I will have people ask me, well, what's the difference between like naturopathic doctors and traditional Western conventionally trained doctors? Like, what do they really do that's different? And then also, what's the difference between a naturopath and a homeopath?
Yeah, it's a pretty stark difference in regards to the way we treat, but the training is pretty similar actually. So the first 2 years of medical school for naturopathic doctors and MD, DO are going to be pretty much identical. And then the second 2 years are where we're going to see the differences. So naturopaths get trained in pharmacology. They get trained in a lot of the modalities that DOs, MDs get trained in, but we also have to explore a lot more in regards to additional therapies. So we get trained in acupuncture and Chinese medicine, nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals. We get trained in a lot of the herbal medicine that we practice. We get trained in chiropractic manual work. So we're kind of incorporating a lot of the other modalities into our practice. Not all naturopaths will practice using all of those modalities, but that was the way that the originally doctor was trained, is to be able to use the best of all tools. And so the naturopathic doctors are still trying to be able to have all of those resources available for patients, as opposed to just pharmaceuticals and surgery, which is how most conventional doctors are utilizing their treatment modalities. So the other difference is in residencies, but more nuanced there. Homeopathic doctors are strictly homeopaths, just like an acupuncturist is an acupuncturist or a chiropractor is a chiropractor. Naturopathic doctors have learned those modalities to some extent, and are trying to incorporate them instead of just being a single modality practitioner. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, what do you think a common misconception people have is about naturopathic medicine? Like, what do you find that's like maybe you have to correct people on, or some belief that's out there about the field?
It depends on where you're practicing, because I know that practicing on the West Coast, naturopathic medicine is almost mainstay. It's almost like a primary care doctor. Like, we're more integrated into the system. On the East Coast and in the South, it's less common. We're more of a specialty, a more nuanced, less common provider. So teaching people how we approach medicine is going to be an important feature of what I do, because one of the principles of naturopathic medicine is being a teacher, teaching people their disease, teaching people their cause, teaching people how to fix the problem, not just giving them a therapy, but educating them so that they can be preventing this from reoccurring. That's huge for us, because I don't want to just treat someone. I want to teach them so that they can go tell others how to fix the problem, right? And there's enough people dealing with problems. I don't need each individual person coming to me. Teach how to solve problems. And so, really what we want to do as naturopaths is really just kind of address that root cause and identify and be proactive with the disease pattern.
Right. Whereas you go to a conventional doctor, they're looking at, well, I'm just going to treat the symptom, right? Like, okay, you have this
Yeah.
symptom for whatever issue it is. I've got a drug for that. We'll treat the symptom. And so that symptom may go away or be lessened or whatever, but then typically what happens is another symptom occurs, or that drug is causing some other deterioration in the body in another organ system, let's say.
Yeah, as a naturopath in I've practiced in 4 different states. We have a different scope in each state. And a naturopath is really designed to try and address root causes individually for a person as efficiently as possible without causing harm, right? That's like kind of the long-worded statement of how I approach every patient. In different states, was able to use medication if I thought it was indicated, right?
Yeah.
So I've always been, what's the pro con analysis of every therapy? Is this the most effective and useful tool? Is it going to cause problems? And so I think there's a time and place for everything. As a naturopath, I typically find that most pharmaceuticals are very effective, but they don't resolve in any disease pattern. They manage disease patterns. And sometimes they're necessary to keep the patient afloat while we resolve root causes. So there's a time and place for everything. But yeah, I mean, as naturopaths, we're looking to try and how do we fix this instead of just how to keep them from being symptomatic.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is that what got them into that situation, whatever the health issue is, could have been years of stress or eating
Sure.
incorrectly, or it could be a genetic thing or whatever it is. And so many people still want, like, well, just give me a pill. Like, what, how are you going to fix this quickly? Because, and I say to people, like, well, you didn't get to that point where you are overnight, like immediately, right? It was years of doing whatever you were doing that got this organ system to, to have this much dysfunction in it. So it's not going to take 2 seconds for you to get back to where you were. You have to, you have to understand it's almost like, okay, this much time it took me to get there. Now we're going to work backwards. It might take you that much time to get back to perfect health, right? Like, you don't know. Some
Sure.
people resolve faster, some don't. But I
Sure.
think it's all about, like, teaching people that we're not just going to put a band-aid on this. We want to figure out why this happened. We want to address the root cause, and like you said, so it doesn't reoccur.
Yeah. Yeah. I give you an example. I had a patient who was seeing a gastroenterologist for a condition called SIBO, upper GI bacterial overgrowth. And they had repeated the same course of action every 3 months, 8 times. So I talked to her. I said, do you want to do something different? Do you want to fix it? Or are you happy just doing the same thing? She was, I think, in her 60s. So like, you can do this for the next 20 years if you want, probably with less efficacious results each time. Or we can identify why it's reoccurring and solve it if you want. And she's like, oh, I didn't know there was a solution. Okay, well, that's exactly what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, and isn't that amazing that some people don't even know that there's, like, what you guys do, or there's solutions like that. They think, like, well, I'm just gonna have to go, take this is what my regular doctor said, so I guess I'm
She
just gonna
wasn't
take this
told any
drug.
different.
Yeah.
That was just her option. But she
Right.
was luckily referred to someone who has some experience dealing with those problems. They said, well, fix your motility, we'll fix your microbiome and your digestive tract. And guess what? She hasn't come back since. So I got a good
Awesome.
report card and that was it.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So what is one or two or three things, like your top, your top things that you would recommend everyone needs to start doing to improve their health?
So, and I'm probably a little biased because my field of medicine is these really significant chronic inflammatory conditions, right? So I see people in a lot of distress. So usually, like you said before, it's not an overnight process. It happens over time. And it's a gradual building on itself. And what happens is that inflammatory cascade building on itself over time is going to yield a high amount of sympathetic drive in the body. So sympathetic is your fight or flight response to the autonomic nervous system. People can hear about it in different ways, like cell danger response or stress and cortisol, right? Or even anxiety can somewhat be lumped into that category. It really drives the person further into distress because their body's perception of their disease pattern is also facilitating more disease pattern because they're in this sympathetic fight or flight state. So the first thing I get people to do is to start breathing. No one breathes
Yeah,
anymore.
right. Everyone's holding their breath.
So it's like, they're doing 15 to 20 breaths a minute every 4 seconds. It's like these fast, choppy breaths, and they're holding that sympathetic state in this anxiety driven, and it's not really all it's not really their fault either because it's what their body's reacting to, whether it's an infection or something of that nature. So I teach them how to breathe, move your diaphragm, right? And then with zero cost and a few minutes a day, they're now in a more sympathetic or more parasympathetic state where they can rest. Their sleep has improved, their digestion has improved. Everything is starting to trend in the right direction, right? We're building on foundations. Once they're able to breathe, we can get them to start sleeping a little better because they're more parasympathetic, rest and digest. And then once they can sleep, their energy slightly goes up enough to get them moving. Once we get them moving, we have got the ball rolling in the right direction. It can start with a walk, but once we get them moving, we're circulating, our lymphatic system's working, our muscles are working, our metabolic system is working, everything's going in the right direction. We're clearing out problems and our body's healing. So breathe, sleep, move.
That's so
Zero problem.
interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting because I think people, and my expectation too, would have expected you to start saying maybe something related to diet or maybe different supplements or things like that. But it's so simple, right? Like it's literally just like you just breathe, just focus on your breath work.
Yeah,
And once you are more aware of that and calming down the nervous system and all that just by breathing, honestly, that's going to impact your sleep. And like you said, once you have better sleep, now you have better energy levels and you can start exercising. What rather than taking a person and trying to put them on some type of an exercise routine right out of the gate, or changing their diet. And now all you're doing is adding more stress onto someone who's
exactly.
already highly stressed.
Right. You can't jump them in. I mean, we use hyperbaric oxygen, we use high dose IV therapies, we use infrareds, we use colonics, we use all these high-end therapies on patients, but you can't start there in a lot of patients, right? You're just waiting for the nuclear reactor to blow up if you start there. So you have to build a foundation for them, their tolerance level and work your way up. And for a lot of patients, honestly, a lot of them know the diet. They've been on this journey for 15 years. They figured out that I can't eat this, I can't eat that. I don't need to change my diet. If I change their diet, maybe they get a 5% improvement, right? But their
Mhm.
central nervous system is something they're not usually cognizant of. They're not focusing on, right? And they're like, I can't sleep. I don't know what it is. I'm up all night long. I'm like, well, you can't heal unless you're in a rested state, right? And that's a central nervous system rest. So we'll use craniosacral therapy, we'll use acupuncture, we'll use breathing tools, we're using whatever it needs to be to meet the patient where they're at to help down regulate their system so that they're not being chased by a bear.
Right. 24/7. For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. It's all about reducing the stress because like you add all these other things in, diet, exercise, none of that's really going to matter if you don't have the stress response under control.
Exactly.
So that's really what we want people to be, like aware of and understanding first. So this has been awesome. We're going to get into a lot more. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking more with Dr. Zachary Moran. at rootsmedicalcenter.com. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. You can learn more about me at www.drdianehayden.com. And I'm talking today with Dr. Zachary Moran. He has a practice in Columbia, Connecticut. You can learn more about him at his website, which is www.rootsmedicalcenter.com. That's spelled ROOTSMEDICALCENTER.com. So right before we went to break, we were talking about just the stress response and all of that. And you said something that I want to repeat and kind of talk about a little bit, because I think it struck me, and I'm sure that other listeners might have caught it, or maybe they're not even aware of it. I think it's really important to talk about. But you said your body's perception of the disease, it's the disease that you have. So your body's like, think of it as your body is sort of like this other, not your brain necessarily, but your body, all of your organ systems, the perception, the energy around your disease can actually make the disease worse, or I'll say better, right? Like depending on what your perception of it is.
Sure. Well, every cell is going to react accordingly, pending its exposures and its environment, right? So if your body is in a chronic inflammatory state, most organ systems will be affected. And when they're affected, they are going to perceive a stress response, perceive damage, perceive some inflammatory cascade, and that to the immune system, central brain, and say he's in trouble. Your body is dealing with a problem. And so how many people, let me ask you this, are after 10, 15, 20 years of a diagnosis saying, I am this diagnosis, right? I am a fibromyalgia patient. I am
identifying with it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A disease state. And so now not only are their internal organ systems experiencing that stress response, they're also telling themselves, I am that disease pattern. And so they're creating an unhealable process. The first step in telling patient that and getting them better is to tell them that they can get better, right? Once they believe that they have an opportunity to heal, if they don't believe that they can get better, there's little I can do for them.
Right. Yeah. But it's so interesting that unknowingly, so like, let's say like not consciously, you have the ability to actually make yourself worse. And I have a personal experience with that, and I talk about this a lot. A couple of years ago, I started having like tachycardia episodes, and I was having, like a not an arrhythmia diagnosed or anything like that, but like PVCs, where you feel like your heart, beats really quickly a couple times and then hesitates, or it feels like it hesitates or whatever. And I went through all the, got all the testing, but nothing's wrong with me, of course, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's just stress, whatever. But, it's unnerving if you've ever had it, right? Like it's not fun when you can feel your heartbeat and it's not beating regularly, right? So I went through, I did like a lot of different things, because holistically I'm trying all this different stuff. And it was funny because I was started to work with this one coach, who's really well known as far as like stress reduction and mindset, and kind of changing the way, helping you change the way you think about things. Because I got to the point where I thought about it every day. Like I would wake up in the morning and be like, okay, what's going to happen today? Am I going to have tachycardia? Am I going to have, like, that's the first thing I'm thinking about as soon as I wake up. And of course, within an hour, I've got something, right? Like, I'm like, and she presented to me the fact that, I don't want to say that you're causing it, because that, I feel like that, that takes away people's power when it's like, oh, I have no control over this, or it's something I'm doing to myself. But she made me reframe it in a way where I started thinking like, okay, what if I didn't identify with this? What if I didn't wake up every morning and think about it? What if I thought, okay, it's just the way that my heart is, and every once in a while it's going to do something like that, and I'm not going to have a heart attack, and it's not life threatening and whatever. And
Right.
I started doing a couple other things. I changed a few other things that I did with my diet and exercise and whatever. And really, the biggest thing was that I stopped stressing out about it. And literally,
Sure.
it all stopped. Like it all went
Right.
away within like a couple weeks. And
Yeah.
this one functional medicine doctor I was working with said, I'm telling him, I'm like, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. He's actually an integrative cardiologist. And the last thing I said was, and then, I really just stopped stressing out about it. And he goes, I'm going to tell you, Diane, that like the last thing you said is the reason why you don't have it anymore. All that other stuff that
Definitely.
you did, irrelevant. Like,
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah, but it's
crazy.
also it's hard for patients in those long-term states, who've lived with it so long, they just expect it to be there all the
Right.
time. I'm
Yep.
so tired all the time. My body hurts all the time. I expect it to be there. It's just who I am. And no one up until now has told me that I can actually recover, right? So
Right.
they have to go through a retraining process and belief process of like, I can actually heal. And once there is a slim bit of hope, there's progress.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So tell me a little bit about like what are the common things that you see? What types of things do you offer in your practice? And you actually practice with another naturopath as well. So what things do you guys do? What do you offer? What are the common problems people come to you for?
Yeah, so me and my colleague here, we each have our specialty. I focus on, like we talked about, the chronic inflammatory conditions people don't have really names for. I got fibromyalgia, I got IBS, I've got, neurological symptoms and tremors, I've got weird skin rashes, I've got joint pains that don't make sense that migrate, right? Um, I had a patient recently who said, I just went blind for 3 weeks and I have no idea why. No one
Wow,
can
that's
figure it
scary.
out. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
especially when you've been to three neurologists and they can't figure out what's going on. And my colleague is also a very integrative provider. She does a lot of oncology, and so together we work in a lot of different disease states, but mostly autoimmune conditions, neurology, gastroenterology. We see a lot of just infections. We see a lot of toxicity. We see a lot of patients with various concerns that just need answers. It's been, 15, 20 years. I've got stacks of imaging and stacks of blood work that don't tell me anything, that tell me I'm fine. And so then we take the deeper dive. We understand, we ask more questions. We go through the history, take more time and understand what's really going on. And then from there, once we have the diagnostics and understand really this is probably your cause, we can treat it more effectively and resolve the problem. So what do we do for therapies? Um, it's patient dependent. So what I will sometimes do is talk patient through options. And I will say, hey, there's options to do this, this, and that. There's options to, take supplements, to change your diet. There's options to, go a pharmaceutical route if they wanted to, right? I want to make sure all their options are on the table, what the pros and cons of everything is. I have a patient recently with severe mold toxicity. And she was like, just throw the kitchen sink at me, right? So we have her in office daily, and she's doing hyperbarics, she's doing colonics, she's doing IV therapies with glutathione, she's taking oral supplements, she changed her diet, she's doing a PMF at home with red light, and not every day is all these happening, but we've created a regimen and a protocol that she can tolerate, she builds into, and she's 2 weeks in and she's 70% better, right?
Wow.
So it
Awesome.
doesn't take long. If pending the protocol, we have other patients who are hypersensitive and we have to start super gradual and slowly work into a progress of maybe very slow, gradual treatments. Maybe we're changing the diet, maybe we're changing their environment, maybe they're improving their sleep patterns, right? And eventually they'll tolerate supplements and maybe they'll tolerate some type of additional therapy in the future. So it's all patient dependent. We utilize things in office here. We utilize different resources all across the country from different practitioners because we have patients all over the country, actually all over the world. We're starting to see patients all over the world at this point.
And I was just going to say, actually, you practice virtually, clearly, because you have patients, like you just said, all over the country and internationally for sure. So And people who are listening to this who are outside of Connecticut can certainly get in touch with you and learn more.
Yeah, happy to help.
Awesome. And then your website again is www.rootsmedicalcenter.com. So the best way for people to do that is just to go to the website and learn more about you guys, and then contact information from there.
Yeah, we have a social media page, Facebook and Instagram. We try and put free content out as much as we can, with our time demanding, if we can, and we'll try and offer patients on our website different resources, protocols. There's testing available for patients. So we try and really give patients their advocacy that they deserve.
Yeah, I love it. You guys are doing amazing things. Well, thank you so much for all the great information. This has been a blast talking to you, Zach, and hope everybody visits your website.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. I appreciate it.
Of course. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into the show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. I want to welcome you back here next time. And please like and subscribe to my channel, Dr. Diane Hayden. See you back here next time. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.